Resident Evil Requiem, Resident Evil 9.
100%.
Where's the 9 in Requiem? Is it the Q?
I don't know. But I will say I did laugh because this game, we've known about this game for months at this stage. Only this week, I was like, yes, Requiem starts with RE. Of course. They're just going to go through the whole dictionary using RE words, rewords, till they run out.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, same.
But have they done that? I mean, Village and Biohazard weren't that. So.
No, but it's one of those things where, like you said, the 8 in Village, they always find a way to like incorporate some other thing. Yeah. Only this week I was like, Ari Quiem. There we go.
I really like that they announced these games quite close to release, because the first time we saw this was Summer Game Fest, I think in June, July last year, and now it's out. I'm fully into this. They've been doing this since 7.
Since 7, yeah.
I back it, yeah.
And I will remind you, when they did that with 7, it was a thing of, oh, hey, here's Resident Evil 7. It's coming out in 6 months.
February, yeah.
Everyone, I know I wasn't alone, everyone thought, that's a bit soon to show a game and release a game. This game's going to flop. And
I think we were actually at E3 when they announced it at Sony's press conference there.
And great excitement, but also, what is this? It's kind of a reboot. It's too soon. And then that game came out, and you know what? That kicked off. Well, it wasn't just that. There was a Monster Hunter, but that helped kick off Capcom's redemption arc. And let me tell you, they have not missed. So
since then they haven't. Yeah,
you and I haven't finished Requiem. Okay, I know, but we're both a couple hours in, and I've played enough to know that, goddamn, this game is. It's so good. It is. So, if you don't know, Requiem is kind of like 2 games stuffed in one. It's the same story, but you play as 2 people. So we've got newcomer Grace Ashcroft, who has a link to Resident Evil's history through her mother. I think she appeared in another game.
Name, right?
Yeah, and the name, I'm like, I need to actually read up on it. But also, El Clasico Leon is back. So half the game you're playing.
This video is getting so demonetized after that scene.
Yeah, my bad. I forgot. But the 2 halves of the game are essentially like, Grace is not your veteran zombie survivor. She reacts how I think you and I would react, any normal person would react in the situation. She's terrified. When she holds her torch, she's like shaking. You can hear her breathing. So that's where the survival horror aspect comes in, where playing as her is way more stressful than playing with Leon, who's what you expect. He's good old over the shoulder, one line after another, roundhouse kicking people because he can. He's Leon. So it's those 2 games in one, and from what I've played, it's really good. It's all the parts I love about Resident Evil. It looks good. It feels good to explore. Grace's parts are pretty intense. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm finding it. It's pretty tense out here in this game, but I'm having a great time.
Yeah, Grace's sections are quite scary, and I think they lean into that. Like you said, it is 2 games in one. This is the lineage of 7 and 8 being more spooky, maybe less 8, because 8 was actually quite 8 like lean more into the action. It found a bit of a balance. But like Grace's sections feel very Resident Evil 7 coded. You are very limited in terms of resources. You go up against things that chase you around the arenas. Quite surprised how many of those there are. And they'll just like follow you around. Not like Tyrant, so to speak, but similar to, say, the father in Resident Evil 7, where it's like a limited space where he will just kind of patrol around and you've got to avoid him. Her sections are hectic, especially the opening is quite scary, I find, and they're just cool. They're that new style of Resident Evil that I've really liked, and then Leon's sections are very Resident Evil 4 like. He's seasoned, he's gruff, he looks quite old, he just seems really sick of this shit. He's bought a Porsche, he's really in his like midlife crisis era.
I thought the same thing. I was like, wow, man, I should have followed Leon's career path. This man is coining it.
Yeah, I mean, rookie cop in Raccoon City, now just owning a Porsche. I mean, he's dying from something, but it's cool that I find the opening a bit like a bit of whiplash because they bounce between Grace and Leon quite a bit. Well, not quite a bit, but very rapidly. Like their sections of play are really limited and short, and it initially got me a bit worried that they were going to do this quite a lot, and then it kind of like doesn't let you settle into one or the other nicely before you're swapping to a completely different style of gameplay. But it seems that was more the tutorial or the extended opening, and now that I'm in Grace's really big first section, it's like, oh, okay, no, you're going to be here for maybe a couple of hours and then transition to Leon after that. And I'm quite enjoying that because it is just here's a space, it's like one big puzzle box, start poking around it, while also just avoiding enemies a lot as Grace because you just don't have enough resources to shoot everything you see. I quite like also the change to, I mean, this one's got zombies, 7-head mold men, 8-head werewolves. This is back to zombie-like things. But they're different. They retain memories or attributes of their previous lives, and they kind of go about some of their old routines, which makes them a bit more challenging to get around. So, for example, I walked into a room where there was a chef, a really big chef with like a knife, and he was just wandering around the kitchen, like chopping stuff and like just being really gross about a lot of things. But he was following that routine, and it also meant he had weapons at his disposal that he would kind of like use against Grace. Similar thing with like a nurse who was like cleaning a spot on the floor, or this really odd instance where a dude was choking another person on the floor while they were both zombie. It was a bit strange. But it's cool that they have routines and like personality to them. It makes them a bit more distinct and makes Resident Evil 9 feel different to like the RE2, 3, and 4 sorts of enemies.
Hang on, let me just
demonetize completely
let me
all
just
these scenes.
get rid of that part.
Between everything.
I actually forgot about that.
That also kind of bleeds into Leon's gameplay where enemies will pick up weapons, for example. I mean, the big one at the start is an enemy has a chainsaw, because of course he does. And they will sometimes just, if you shoot it out of their hands, they'll re-pick it up and attack you with them. So they are far more aggressive in that way. And I think that's what makes it feel like RE4. The Plagueis virus kind of allowed them to do the same. So it's neat. I like the two different styles of gameplay. And now that it's settling into a bit of a rhythm, I think I'm getting real into especially Grace's side of things.
Yeah, I think just to go back to what you said about the zombies retaining their personalities, it reminds me a little bit of BioShock. If you remember,
the splices.
Going to Rapture for the first time, and the splices are obviously trying to kill you, but they still talk and they have some, sort of remnant of, their past lives or humanity, whatever. But it just, in terms of the vibe, I get so reminded of that. But yeah, what's also cool is that, I don't know if because you're still pretty early days, but some of the notes you find, it'll be like, oh yes, this person, they were a patient and they were experiencing this and this, and they're showing these symptoms. Like, oh, that's referring to this specific zombie in that part of this hospital who does this. I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's like nice little touches. You can see it's not just like a random person who does this. Like there's been a lot of thoughts put into, obviously setting up this freak house, little shop of horrors, but also like placing these zombies individually with personality and doing certain things, whatever. And not only that, like the design is super intentional. There's so many things that have taken me off guard where you think, oh, cool, I've dealt with this zombie, or I've gone off and I've done something else. This part of this hospital's clear. I can just kind of run in and out here as I please. I need to come back later and like, oh no, a zombie from this next room has now started patrolling this corridor. So it always keeps you on your toes. It's never quite clear. And I mean, I'm sure if you were to play the game multiple times, you'd probably pick up on like, oh, this is how I can like break the game and, exploit certain things. But playing it fresh for the first time, like I don't know what to expect half the time because it's just so unpredictable. And that just feeds into the survival horror in the best way.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think I think the comparison to like the Bioshock splices is pretty apt because it does give them all a pretty distinct feel, and I'm sure once you move from one area to the next, because currently we're both in the start, which is in like a
Mm,
a hospital slash asylum, um, and my understanding is you will move on from that space, and I assume
mm,
then the sorts of people you find and fight will differ depending on what like their profession was or what sort of daily routine they used. And I'm curious to see how that like evolves and changes the
mm.
gameplay a little bit, because I mean it's very easy to say that it doesn't, but already in these beginning parts, like depending on which enemies I'm coming across, their behavior is quite different.
Mm.
And you can kind of like work around that when you start predicting what they might do or what weapons they might have.
Mm.
um, yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm keen to get stuck into it more, and the story seems quite interesting because it's tying back to uh, Resident Evil 2, the whole
Yeah.
Raccoon City incident. There's something there where, I mean, the opening of the game is basically describing a lot of survivors from the Raccoon City incident being killed or murdered, and
Mm.
there's some dude that apparently knows Leon. So
Yeah.
I'm really keen to see how that evolves and where Grace sort of fits into that as well. Because, I mean, she's an Ashcroft, but Ashcroft has been kind of like a side thing, side character in the series as a whole. So maybe they're going to
Yeah.
become like a bigger player going forward. It
Yeah.
remind me, her mom was in a previous game. It wasn't
Uh,
Code Veronica, was it?
no, I think I could be wrong, but I think her mom is one of the playable characters in. There's a whole like spin off, not spin off. There's a whole like sidebar Resident Evil sets of games. I think there were two of them. Uh, Outbreak. There were one or two Resident Evil games where it was like online multiplayer many years ago,
Okay.
where you could play as like one of 8 survivors, I think. And I think it's also during Raccoon City. So I think it's linked to those games somehow, but I never played them. I think they're on the PS2, PS3 era. So there's a link there, which I'm not 100% sure of. I think
Ah,
I
you're
think
right.
I think
You're
Grace
right.
is daughter to one of those playable characters.
Alyssa Ashcroft was playable in Resident Evil Outbreak and
That's
Resident
it.
Evil Outbreak File 2, and then mentioned in Resident Evil 7, which is interesting.
Ah, because there's also a thing where in Outbreak, I think depending on the character you chose, they had like a perk or something. I'm assuming Grace's mom could pick locks because there's an achievement when you pick a lock as Grace. It's like mother, like daughter. I'm like, oh, okay, it must be
That's
a
kind of
reference or
cool.
something to that. Yeah,
Oh my god, there's so. I'm just clicking now on Outbreak. There are 3, 4, 8 playable characters
yeah.
in
It
Resident
was.
Evil Outbreak.
I've never played it, but it's one of those kind of like cult things where I don't know if it reviewed particularly well, but it also might have been a bit ahead of its time. Like I don't know how a
Mm.
multiplayer game would have been. Was it PS2? I think it's PS2 era. Like I don't know how
Yeah,
it
it
would have.
is. It's a PS2 game, yeah, and it seems to have been mostly a multiplayer thing. Is there's like
Yeah.
if you played offline, you would have 2 AI controlled characters always with you,
Mm,
and then you could play with up to 4 people online. But it
yeah.
was still like story based.
Yeah.
It's odd.
So I think
I recognize the artwork. I
yeah, yeah.
can't. It's like jogging a piece of memory in me now. Yeah.
So I think it's one of those things where it might have just been too ahead of its time. Like I
Mm.
think in 2026 you could probably pull something like that off a lot better. But point of the story is that it built up its own following, and I think fans of that series are like, yes, finding like a link to that game. Capcom have acknowledged that series of games. Cool. Let's see
Yeah.
how they plug back into it, or what do they do with the story.
I mean that does make Alyssa and Grace by extension, um, it gives them a connection to Raccoon City as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, hundred
So
percent.
that will definitely tie into things. And yeah, it seems like Grace is important for some reason to the antagonist. So yeah, I'm curious to see how that all plays out, because Resident Evil 4 is cool, but it is a very self-contained story. The same can be said with like 2 and 3. They play out in parallel, but they are the fall of Raccoon City, and then you kind of don't hear much about them. And
Mm,
ever since then, a lot of the games have just like built on the overall lore of the game, but not really dealt with like specific incidents. This is the first time I can remember that it is like, oh, we are referencing this exact game and the consequences of what happened there,
No, I
which is
think it's
probably
been a
the
long
most
time.
iconic setting,
Yeah.
in Resident Evil. So,
No, you're right.
I mean, we've seen in
It's-
a trailer that Leon goes back to the police station at some point.
yeah.
So,
I'm very
keen to
excited.
see
I
that.
mean, I don't know where the story's going to go, but all I'll say is like, okay, I've played 5-6 hours. Game's really good so far. But will it fall into that Resident Evil trap where the openings, like, I think 9 out of 10 times, the openings are always so strong. And then as the longer the game goes on, it sort of starts to lose the horror because you get more weapons or you get used to the enemies, or, like, granted, there are things that always keep you on your toes. But I wonder if this is going to fall into that trap of, horror goes out the window. Grace is just like this killing machine now. She's got enough ammo to get by, or will that be able to maintain her part of the game, all the way through like that? We'll see.
It's a good point because I felt 7 definitely.
Oh,
ended up
7
there.
was such a
Yeah.
that was the last quarter of that game was just straight up.
Yeah.
Like,
Once you've got past the father and the mother, that game loses a lot of its horror.
Yeah.
And it's still, I absolutely adore that game, but I think 8 runs into the exact same problem. Like Lady Dimitrescu and the what's that house? I keep forgetting the dude's name.
Benevito, or whatever it is. It's something.
House of
else.
Benevito or something like that. After those two scenarios, it's like, oh, this game is no longer that scary. So yeah, I suspect it'll probably fall into the same because it is, like you said, it's like a power curve. As you get more things to deal with enemies as Grace, and as you get more comfortable, you obviously lose a lot of that tension because you feel far less vulnerable. But I do wonder if they're able to make Grace feel as vulnerable for the entire game just because you're able to bounce between her and Leon and get that like action kick from him, and they keep Grace quite limited in what she can do. Curious to see how that plays out.
I feel like, again, I've only played a couple hours, but the way her section, I think they've just nailed the survival horror so well, like better than they have in a long time. It just feels, no encounter feels safe. And I think what's worth mentioning as well is that the game defaults that Grace is first person and Leon is third person, with intent obviously that first person is scarier. And it really is, because I think in past Resident Evil games, like, think of the remake 1, that's a good example, where you kind of learn, if a corridor is wide enough, I can just run past an enemy. I can figure out a way, or I can bait them toward me and then run around them. Like, you learn that sort of trick with Resident Evil games. I haven't got that with this one. It's just, anytime there's a zombie in a corridor, it's like, okay, I need to, like, the only way I can get around the zombies if I bait them into a room where I can, like, run around a table. And even then, it's not, you don't always have that room available. So there's a thing of like, shit, do I need to kill the zombie? Do I need to just shoot them once or twice so I can push them over, get past them? It keeps you on your toes, like, constantly. Even now, I've finished that opening section, and the whole time it's just me questioning, like, do I waste my ammo here so that, like, I kind of clear this part of the hospital, or do I just deal with it, and it's just such a good balance. They've nailed it so well in this game.
And Grace is, I mean, it's quite hard to get around enemies because they just grab her.
Yeah, but
they move far less predictably than most enemies.
Yeah, because the first person perspective as well. There are times where I'm like, I'm just gonna sneak past this enemy. I'm like, I hope they haven't seen me, and then they do, and they grab, like, I just wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also I don't know how extensive it can get, but based off of the tutorial text, you get this like syringe which acts as like a stealth kill that is a consumable. You can craft more of it, but it also has the side effect of preventing enemies from further mutating. And I wonder if that's similar to like the Crimson Heads in Resident Evil 1, where you can maybe kill them, but you come back to them and now they're like stronger if you haven't like completely outright killed them. That stealth kill is quite gruesome. It's just plug them in the neck with a little syringe and their head blows up. Pretty hectic.
It's great stuff.
Pretty hectic, yeah. Stay away from that needle, Grace.
yeah, game's good. I think by the time we next record, like I'm pretty sure I would have at least finished it. So you might have as
Yeah,
well.
probably the same because it seems to be like a 12, 14 hour thing, which is
Yeah.
par for the course for these games.
Mm.
I have seen anecdotally the criticism I've seen echoed a lot with this game is that because it is sort of the same amount of time as a normal one, but it's split between these two playstyles, you're left wanting more of both of them, which is a good problem to have. But
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to enjoy as much as I can of each because it's not going to be 14 hours as Grace. It's going to be half of that. You know?
For sure.
Yeah. But I'm really keen to continue playing more and having a good time with it.
It is a
Game
great
looks
time.
real pretty as well. That RE engine's super fucking good.
Just doing its thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and runs like high frame rates on PS5. Neither of us have the Pro, but it runs at like 60 frames a second, no issue. Yeah, wizardry there. That engine's definitely suited to these types of games versus like a Monster Hunter Wilds, it seems. So, yeah.
Yeah. But very keen to keep playing more.